I want to pivot, if I can, to a portion of a letter that you recently wrote to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. He's been under the microscope, as you know, lately for multiple fraud scandals in that state have taken place on his watch. We have this for our viewers. Here's what you wrote to the governor. You said the U.S. Department of Education became aware that fraudulent college applicants, especially concentrated in Minnesota, were gaming the federal post-secondary education system to collect money that was intended for young Americans to help them afford college. In Minnesota, 1,834 ghost students were found to have received $12.5 million in taxpayer-funded grants and loans. Given your dereliction of the office entrusted to you by Minnesotans, I implore you to resign and make way for more capable leadership, end quote. Can you walk me through what you've uncovered there with this administration, looking at what happened with this alleged fraud in Minnesota? And then have you had any response from the governor's office, from Governor Walz himself?
Well, to my knowledge at this point, we have not received any response. And what we have done in looking through the entire program of the federal student loan program, and we had found, and there was a large concentration of it in Minnesota, but totally across the country, we have now saved taxpayers about $1 billion. But what's happening is those universities where students were applying for federal loan, they were not required to show any kind of identification to prove who they were. And so therefore, we had bots that were applying online. We had ghost students that were applying online, and the money gets sent out once the application is approved. And so what we have done at the Department of Education at this particular point on the FAFSA loan program is now requiring different levels of ID so that that money is in fact going where it's intended, to real students, not students, well, some of them weren't even still alive. And there are bots that were receiving the money, they were going to monies in banking accounts, sometimes, offshore. And so we're continuing to hone in on fraud in the student loan program, but we did find a heavy concentration in Minnesota, and we didn't think that much was being done about it, so we brought it to the governor's attention, along with some of the other fraudulent processes that have been already shown to be in his state.
Madam Secretary, if the governor does not respond to your letter, obviously you've uncovered a lot. There's major concern there with where this money is going, if at all, anywhere in the states. What is the next step?
Well, I would like to hear from the governor, and I'll wait and hear what his response is. There are many levers that the Department of Education has, with federal funding, et cetera. I don't want it and don't think it will go that far. I certainly hope it will not, because I think the universities themselves would be very willing to utilize different ID programs. And as we look at the FAFSA applications themselves, and we cross-reference some of the credit information that's being put into that, then we'll be able to narrow that scope.
All right.